I think it's fairly safe to say that we were all at least somewhat disappointed, whether it be in the main event of UFC Vegas 32, whether it be in a couple of the lead-up fights, because there is some controversial scoring decisions, to say the least. And also, the cheater came back and already won his first fight in one that, man, I really don't think he won. But I guess we gotta get into things. But all in all, UFC Vegas 32, fantastic card, fantastic night of fights. And there's a lot of stuff to get into. But of course, I'm your host, Ross Allen, joined alongside by the UFC fourth law correspondent, Blake Campbell. Blake, how are you feeling after a interesting night at the office at UFC Vegas 32?
Yeah, I'm feeling all right, I guess. But yeah, like you said, a couple strange decisions in there. Maybe not strange, but just definitely controversial.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard for everyone, I feel like, to agree on the decisions and the outcomes of those fights.
That's for damn sure. MMA Twitter was ablaze that evening, whether it be from the MMA Twitter fight, the people's co-main event of the evening, Adrian Yanez versus Randy Costa, and then, of course, the weird decisions that we had. And all I gotta say is that if Saul Amato is scoring your fight or is on the card as a judge, we're going to have some issues. That man is the biggest villain in MMA right now, hands down, or at least in my opinion. But before we get into UFC Vegas 32 and that breakdown, along with some news such as Stipe Miocic speaking out against the division, a free pay-per-view for U.S. listeners, and the rematch for the welterweight title going down. And we're also going to take a look at UFC Vegas 33 with our Blake's Bangers? Question mark?
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned for that.
Don't miss out on that.
It's gonna be a mess, is all I gotta say. But before we get to things, just gotta shout out our sponsors. Shout out to Thrive Fantasy for all your sports prop betting needs. You can go on over to thrivefantasy.com or download their app in the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store. And if you get started today, you can use promo code 4th and long. And on deposits at $25 and up to $50, they will match you dollar per dollar. There is no better place to take care of your sports prop betting than Thrive Fantasy. It's super convenient, super nice layout, and it's a really fun way to get into betting if you haven't done it before either. So go ahead, pretty much get some free cash right there, It's basically there for taking if you use that promo code. Go on and get started on that today before all these other sports get underway for the week. And also, this show is mostly brought to you by our fantastic Patreon supporters. And we've been saying this for weeks now, Blake, he needs that money, okay? He needs that paycheck. He's over there, he's struggling. He's just trying to get by at this point, He can only afford so much Super Taco, We want to be able to up his Mexican food budget because we know he loves it. Right, Blake?
Yeah, clearly no one's listening to you. So you guys need to start getting on the train, getting on the Patreon jazz, and getting me some money.
Not only do you help him out, you also get a bunch of goodies for yourself. So you can go on over to patreon.com/4th and long to get started today and to see the list of benefits that each category will give you. But now let's get into UFC Vegas 32. And the question that we always have to ask before we get into the card, Blake, is, did the bangers hit?
That's a rhetorical question, my guy. They always hit. Was there any injuries or any COVID,
nope.
instances? Nothing,
You've been
right?
on a hot streak for at least the last month now. At least.
Dude, I'd say maybe closer to 2.
Closer to 2. I mean, when was the last time that 2 of the 3 got canceled for COVID or injuries? That was probably the last bummer of a Blake's banger. But besides that, you've been pretty solid.
I mean, just to recap our picks from last week, it was Brandon Allen versus Punalele Soriano. I butchered that again. I'm so sorry.
The fight of the night up until that point.
Right. And then I believe I had Adrian Yanez versus Randy Costa.
Of course.
And Costa, however you say that. Darren Elkins and Derek Minner.
Mm-hmm. And
so,
all fantastic fights.
All those fights were crazy. All of those fights were amazing. And there were actually a couple other ones that were insane on this card as well. But those three, I think, honestly, besides the main event, probably were the three most action-packed.
Mm-hmm. And two of those names are ones that we're going to talk about now because let's take a look at some of the biggest winners coming from this card. The first name I want to give to you is for the prelims. Let's talk about Mickey Gall because, of course, the number of years ago after he had that weird fight against CM Punk, he kind of alienated a lot of fans as well. It seems like a lot of people kind of just didn't like him, but he's really made a career, I guess, re-emergence because he's been looking fantastic, and he really does look like a complete fighter, especially after Saturday night when he just kind of throttled Jordan Williams in this one, a wrestler that had good praise from Anthony Smith, Lionheart Smith. He had praise from him. They've had good rounds in sparring, but Mickey Gall he takes him down, and he locks in yet another rear naked choke, and Mickey Gall now has he's tied for the second most submissions in welterweight history. He has 5. The leaders have 6. So what do you think about him? And has he kind of turned a page and maybe put that CM Punk fight maybe in the rearview mirror at this point?
He looked good this weekend, but he was fighting against a guy that I think still hasn't had a ton of experience within the UFC. I mean, think the performance before this, he was fighting Mickey Gall, I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. He was fighting Mike Perry, and he looked awful. You know, I mean, he didn't look awful. I should take that back. He didn't look great. Mm-hmm. And Mike Perry, we've seen what his recent performances have looked like. And if that's the guy that kind of dominates you, because I think he lost a unanimous decision to Mike. Yeah. I think he's still got a lot to work on. Is this a step in the right direction? Yes. He beat a guy that he was supposed to beat, a guy that was that the UFC brass and everyone else probably thinks of on somewhat of a similar level. Now he's going to have to go and get a step up, I think. He's going to have to go and prove like, hey, I'm for real. I'm not going to lose to a guy like Diego Sanchez. I'm not going to lose to a guy like Mike Perry. You know, like how did Diego Sanchez TKO you? Like that's crazy to me. So I mean, hopefully he's still working on.
Is the best school in all of MMA, Blake. So
don't get me started with that. Don't get me started.
Let's not go back to that, right? Oh, that was a couple months ago. I think those jokes might have died.
Had some technical difficulties there. I apologize.
Blake, maybe you don't need that paycheck.
Headphone jack was sat on, and I busted it out.
He really sat on the headphone jack. Was this amateur hour? Okay.
You know, there's 1 hour of every day that I reserve for amateurs, and this was the hour I chose today.
That joke was probably a lot better in your head, wasn't it?
It's better than the Broncos record is going to be this year.
Okay, let's move on. I swear, you always bring up that. Unbelievable. But next guy I want to throw out there is the man that proved the superior snack is Dr. Pepper, I guess. I mean, technically, it's not a snack. The superior junk food. Yeah, superior junk food is Dr. Pepper. Adrian Yanez, he really turned this fight around in the second round. I mean, it's first and second look like completely different fights. He's able to weather the storm against Randy Costin, put up some excellent body shots, really worth the gut well against the cage, and then lands this really devastating uppercut that ends up dropping Costa. And this was just a really solid fight. And the former Dana White Contender Series guy, and he's just one of these prospects that keeps on climbing, and he might be a factor in the upper echelon of the division coming soon.
Don't know about that. We'll need to see a couple more, I think fights from him against probably better prospects. Costa just blew his load, man. Like, how many freaking strikes did he piece Yanez up in the first round with? I think he had like 51 significant strikes or something crazy in the first round. Yeah, it's crazy he wasn't able to get Yanez out of there. I mean, you see the damage on Yanez's face after the match, and he's the one that won. Like, Costa looked relatively unscathed, even after taking that huge uppercut. Like, I thought that might have broke his nose or something, but dude was on a jog today. Like, he's looking like he's fine. He just blew his freaking load and had no energy, it looked like, in that second round.
Do races just have restorative properties?
I don't know.
Is that something we need to look into?
I don't know, man.
What's better? What's more performance enhancing, Reese's or EPO? Okay.
I'm gonna say EPO. I'm just gonna go out on a limb.
EPO's tough. So of course we're going to get to that fight a little later. Then also my biggest winner from the card is going to be the damage Darren Elkins, because he now has the second most wins in the featherweight division. He has 15. The leader Max Holloway has 17. But this was another fight where he really turned things around from the first round to the second, and he just had another one of those performances where he broke his opponent. We saw in like the last seconds of that fight, Derek Miller, he almost didn't want to be there. It is kind of what it seemed like. Then he just kind of balled up and was trying to avoid as much damage as possible. But we all saw when it was over. And after a number of losses, after a string of losses, it looked like it might have been over for Darren. But now he gets a couple of wins in a row. He looks great, and I'm super excited to see his next fight. This man just will never go away, is what it seems like.
Yeah, he's a grinder, man.
Yeah, I mean, one of the ultimate grinders, and also another Darren Elkins fight. What would it be without him bleeding from the face? Of course, right?
Would it take like 10 seconds?
Yeah. Who's the quickest bleeder? I know they're not nearly the same weight class, Blake, but imagine how much blood would be on the canvas if we saw Darren Elkins versus Nate Diaz.
It would be a flood.
That, you know how we got that for UFC 200? We got that gold canvas. We're gonna have to get like a it's gonna look like that, but crimson. You know, if these guys ever fought, that would. Hey, you really have to take all the blood donors. I mean, you probably have to get what, like a pint from each fan, right, for this fight to be able to support them afterward.
Maybe just to kind of get ahead of it.
That'd be great. And then also, we really need to talk about this Allen versus Soriano fight, right? One that you were really high on, and one that excited everyone. But what'd you have to say about this?
Yeah, I just think Brendan Allen came out and took care of another hot prospect, and that just, I think what the only loss he has is to Sean Strickland in the UFC, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I'm not mistaken, I think Sean Strickland's his only loss. I think that's a great fight for him to be chasing after. Even if Strickland gets the win or the loss, he should be going after that fight. Obviously, if Strickland gets the win, it's going to be a lot tougher of an ask. But, yeah, man, Brendan Allen looks like he has really improved in every area. I'd like to see him just keep getting higher-level fights because the guy is a stud, a champion, I believe, in LFA in the past. So, you know, he's got a little something to him. I just want to keep seeing him take those steps forward because he really has worked on his striking, and that was the biggest glaring hole in his game, especially like Sean Strickland TKO'd his ass. Like it was pretty gnarly. And judging from those two fights, like seeing his progression, he looks like almost a completely different fighter. It's nice, but he still has those aspects of like the ground game and everything like that looked, you know, that made him who he was before.
Mm-hmm.
So it just looks like he's evolving, and I like to see it.
He looks like a way different fighter than that fight with Sean Strickland. He looks almost like two different phases in that if you're going to take a loss to Sean Strickland isn't bad, but that's almost like changing for the better is what it seems like. So, I mean, the best fighters in the world are the ones that are able to take these losses and then totally rebound for them and use them as a learning experience and a way to get better. And that's all Brendan Allen has done with that. But really, before we get into the main event of the evening, I just want to talk about obviously, one of the biggest topics coming for this card was the judging problems. And we saw those pop their heads up in Macy Barber versus Miranda Maverick. We saw Kyler Phillips versus Raleigh Pavia, and then Sanhagan and Dillashaw. And so, did you agree that these fights were scored incorrectly, or at least there was some controversy to them? And if so, do you agree with like maybe the overall sentiment that there's still a judging almost crisis in MMA?
Yeah, I didn't agree. I didn't agree with the Barber decision. Mm-hmm. I thought Maverick clearly won the first two rounds. Mm-hmm. Kyler Phillips versus Paiva, or however you say his name, I thought that should have been worst case scenario a draw.
Mm-hmm.
Because that first round, how could that not be a 10-8 for Kyler? I mean,
right.
the guy had him seeing stars. I mean, I don't understand how that's not scored a 10-8 round. I don't think that Paiva had a moment in that round. So that was weird to me. The Dillashaw Sanhagan one, I'm probably the least amount of upset on, just because I understand that's a ridiculously high level fight.
Yeah, it was.
And it was a lot to take in. And full transparency, I've only watched it once all the way through live. So I think I really should have gone back and watched it a second time to really put it in perspective. But that fight was the closest one out of all of them, and that one I could see going TJ or going Corey. I think either way, each side has a case to be made. So yes, long story short, judging problems still exist. It is kind of a crisis, especially when you look at one of the judges, how they gave TJ the fourth round. I think that's absolutely crazy, man. I think that's when Corey made a lot of good adjustments. I felt was in the fourth. He stopped throwing spinning stuff.
Yes.
You know, I don't know, man. It was just weird. It was just weird.
Well, let's go ahead and talk about that fight. I mean, first, I just want to make the point that 2 of the 3 controversies were with Team Alpha Male fighters. So it seemed like maybe you're right. They threw a little bit of that California money at these judges.
That California love.
Right. The butt chin making plays over there on the sideline.
To shake that little butt chin a little bit, you know?
Right.
Get some decisions.
It is Vegas. You might see that chin on the pole itself. Or are we crossing boundaries that we shouldn't cross?
Yeah, we're just kidding, Uriah. Don't beat us up.
Yeah, please, dude. He probably put me in the guillotine real quick.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, those fighters are scary. Also, I mean, shout out to Team Alpha Male. Coach Joey Rodriguez, one of the most underrated striking coaches in all of MMA. Always got to show some love to them. But, yeah, I mean, speaking of Team Alpha Male, speaking of former Team Alpha Male, let's talk about this main event properly. Corey Sanhagan versus Tj Dillashaw. In TJ's first fight in a couple years, coming off doing some horrid roids and performance enhancers in EPO. Then Corey Sanhagan, the cleanest fighter, and he took that first and only loss in his UFC career to Aljamain Sterling, and then he got right back on the track with knocking the hell out of Frankie Edgar, and
Moraes.
Yes, and Marlon Moraes. Thank you. And at the least, we could all say that this fight it's a fight of the year candidate. I would say this was maybe not the winner, but it's going to be up there. I think top 5 of the fights that we've seen, possibly, or at least main events. Top 5 main events.
I don't know, dude.
All right, fine.
It was a really good fight. It was a really, really good fight. Yes.
Is super back.
Fight of the year? No. I think there's been a couple of really, 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 really good fights this year.
Fine.
But yes,
really good fight.
Awesome.
And we can leave it at that. But ultimately, why I really liked TJ. Let's talk about the scoring for this. I agree that TJ won rounds 1 and 3. I gave Sanhagan 2, 4, and 5. Is that the same with you?
Did TJ get busted in the second?
TJ got busted up in the second because that was the knee was also hurt in the second round, but I really remember it was that right cross that busted open that eye of TJ, and that was bad. Yeah. Because it was I want to say after 2.
I for sure went 2 and 4.
Yeah.
For Corey. 5, I was leaning towards Corey just because I thought starting in round 4, I thought Corey made all the necessary adjustments.
Yes.
Like we were talking about before, he stopped throwing the spinning stuff because TJ caught him a couple times. Either he would get to his back or he would be able to get him to the ground off of those spinning things, mostly just by following Corey's momentum. Like remember that one time he threw the knee and that ended up getting he ended up getting taken down to the ground because of that, even though he connected flush and it was a great hit.
Also that knee to the triangle was really impressive.
Yeah, it was great.
By Corey Sanhagan. That was some high level stuff, you know?
I mean, props to TJ too for just staying calm and just posturing up and getting out of that sticky situation. Because I thought for sure like that looked strange to me.
It looked
and
deep.
then not to mention like Corey hurt his knee. I think TJ in his press conference yesterday was saying his knee was already jacked up.
Yeah, well, he was saying that he had a really hard camp and that
he said he had a torn MCL.
Hey man, that's what happens when you don't do.
And if you remember, if you remember last week on, I know we're kind of jumping around here, but on Tough, that was a big storyline on Tough last week. Guy had a grade 2, I believe, MCL tear, and he chose not. Yeah, and he chose not to fight on that.
Which that was a weird decision, if I'm being honest. That was a weird episode of Tough.
Yeah,
but of course,
anyway.
I called it. Maybe not the same way, but after Volkanovski made it 4-2, I called that he was going to win the next 2 fights.
You could kind of see it coming that
so
way,
obvious, man.
you know?
It was so obvious.
But I like it though. Now it's kind of even Steven, so we'll see who's
obvious,
the top dog now.
It's still fun, but if you want to get the round per round breakdown, there's actually a little bit where you can make the argument that Corey Sanhagan even won the first round. If you're looking at striking, Corey outstruck TJ 15-8 on the ground. It was 0-4, and then on just talking about standing, round 2 26-10, 22-23, 26-19, 37-38. So just striking. I mean, Corey won 3 of those rounds, and it was really close. The deciding factor ultimately is what appears to the judge, at least what it appears like, was the amount of back control and maybe control time that Tj Dillashaw had in this fight, because every round he had moments where he would push Corey against the cage, and he was on his back. He wasn't doing a whole hell of a lot. He wasn't even doing the Kamaru Usman toe stomps, you know.
He'd throw some, you know, some of those. What do you call those when dead legs?
Yeah,
knees to the leg.
Yeah, you need the quad, but nothing damaging, you know, nothing crazy. And so that's why if we look when there's some scoring issues, I always want to take a look at, you know, scoring criteria, and then like from the UFC website itself. When you take a look at the criteria, it's the 3 main groups in order is effective striking and grappling, then effective aggressiveness, then control of the fighting area. So I think the first one's where a lot of the controversy comes from, because in the distance, Corey Sanhagan was clearly the better striker. He clearly had the more effective striking. So is just holding someone against the cage considered effective grappling? And should that be considered more than effective striking? I don't think so.
I don't know. And I think another point that people were making too was the fact that TJ was the one putting the pressure on, advancing, you know, dictating where the fight's taking place.
But that's really the third in priority of
octagon control.
Yeah, octagon control is at the bottom. Control the fighting area. That's the lowest priority of scoring.
You're talking to the wrong dude, my guy. I picked Corey too.
I know.
No,
but
you're preaching to the choir.
There's so many people.
You should tell that to what's that dude on Twitter, bro? Andrew or something. He's fired up about it.
I love it. He's one of my favorite followers. Dude's awesome. But I agreed to disagree when it came to this fight. You know.
Yeah. Well, so the thing with me that I have the biggest problem with, and maybe it's a casual take, but I didn't see Corey in trouble one time in there, man.
Yeah.
I saw TJ in trouble there about. I'll be nice and say 2 separate times.
I say 2. You could
argue 3.
1 to 2 times standing up, and then when he was in that triangle, I thought he was in trouble there too.
And I was saying for me, it was between, you could either say the triangle or when he transitioned to the knee. Mm-hmm. Like TJ was in trouble there. He even said like Corey jacked my knee up right there. Like I was done for the rest of the fight after that. I couldn't pull. I couldn't do anything with that because he was lazy in that position. And then obviously, you know, the knee that busted up his nose, the straight or the cross that opened up his cut.
The fantastic cross, man. That thing is picture perfect. And you saw multiple times where,
and he dropped him damn near too, right in the second. Yeah.
Let's see. Did they rule that a knockdown?
I don't know if they did or not.
They I don't think. Yeah, no, they didn't rule that a knockdown.
Because he kind of like was stumbling a little. He might have just caught him when he was a little off balance.
He rocked him.
But it looked bad.
He rocked him. And this whole fight, TJ would get a couple nice combos in here and there, but Corey Sanhagan was picking this guy apart from distance the whole time. The whole 25 minutes of this fight, he was picking him apart in the distance. Yeah. So,
it's a tough one for me. I personally still think, and I need to watch it again. Mm-hmm. But even after dissecting, what everyone said, what I remember watching, I still think Corey probably should have won that 3-2.
And
It
I would like to make it
makes
clear
sense.
that Macy Barber versus Miranda Maverick, that was a robbery. That was a
Robbery.
This fight, not a robbery. Corey Sanhagen did not get robbed in this one, but he should have won. The decision was bad, and as soon as I heard, because they read out his scorecard second, as soon as Saul Diamata's score was read out saying that he gave this fight to Tj Dillashaw, I was like, oh no, it is over for Corey. As soon as I said that, man, I hate that guy so much. In almost every controversial scoring decision you see, his name's on the scorecard. It's ridiculous, man. I really don't think we need this. There's a pattern. And the unfortunate part too, Blake, is maybe there's a lot of people that understand this, but not enough on, like, at least on Twitter realize this, is that the UFC and Dana White, they don't pick who the judges are. That's solely up to the governing body in that specific state. So it's the athletic commissions that pick those. So the problem isn't the UFC or MMA or the president. The problem lies in the athletic commissions, but also we've been knowing that the athletic commissions have a lot of issues, you know?
Just ask Nick Diaz.
Just ask Nick Diaz, I swear. The worst stuff, but now let's take a look because what's next for these guys. So let's talk about Corey Sanhagen first. I think the best plan of I think there's really one fight to make for either guy. For Corey Sanhagen, it's Rob Font, and they could get honestly the winner of that could get a title shot depending on what happens with Tj Dillashaw when he's going to be taking on the winner of Jan versus Aljo too in September. That really there's only two fights to make for this, and then the winner of the winner of Jan or Aljo versus Tj Dillashaw should fight the winner of Rob Font versus Corey Sanhagen.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Yeah,
because the timeline should add up.
Yeah, it's getting closer too. We're getting really close to.
I mean, if anything, like look at it this way too. Another possibility is, like, I love both those. I love all those fights. I don't want to change anything with that, right? I want Aljo and I want Jan to do the rematch.
Yep.
TJ's probably sitting out until they're done, rightfully so. Corey could fight Rob in the meantime, which means that's probably going to happen at some point in this year.
Yeah, maybe
towards the fall. Yeah, probably towards the fall, which means they're going to be done fighting the exact same time as Aljo and Jan. Now let's pretend that most likely Jan's going to beat the crap out of Aljo, because that's just I think what everyone's thinking.
What a lot of people are hoping for, at least.
That could open the door for Corey to to get that loss back after Aljo gets beat by Jan. So I mean, maybe while he's waiting for the Jan versus TJ, just to solidify himself as the number one contender, call out Aljo and right that wrong. I mean, that's just me talking out. See,
that wouldn't be bad, but does Corey Sanhagen need 2 more wins for a title shot? I think
I'm just saying, as a competitor, I know damn well, like, if I was in his shoes, I'd be calling for that fight.
I'm not denying that 100%, but I think, like, maybe competitor side.
Does he need it? No.
I think a win over Rob Font gives him a title shot.
Oh yeah, for sure. But he's gonna be waiting another 6 months then.
Yeah, he's gonna be waiting, but I mean, knowing Corey, he probably would want to fight, but realistically, he could wait, and I would be 100% okay with that.
I am not arguing that. I'm just saying that Aljo is going to be available.
Yes, and I think Sanhagen is a different fighter from that. Also, remember, Sanhagen mostly just got caught early in that too.
Not even caught with a strike, but he got his back got took in the first 10 seconds.
And he admitted fully too that his wrestling sucked after that fight. He admitted that, and his wrestling's different. We saw him on the ground against TJ, and TJ's who's a good wrestler that typically mauls people on the ground. He looked good. He looked at the least.
But keep in mind, TJ was compromised, so that's another factor of the fight that if we take him at his word, then he was he was 50% able in terms of his wrestling game plan.
That's fair. I think it's safe to say Sanhagen's at least improved on the ground, and so if he fought Aljo again, that'd be a completely different fight. 100% confident in saying that. Then also, do you think? I mean, Tj Dillashaw, does he deserve a title shot, one fight after 2 years off because of suspension? Maybe,
Yeah.
maybe not. But I think ultimately, look at here. Like if you just look
Why would he not? I mean,
well, it's
the only
because
reason
I'm going off the devil's advocate saying that he needs to earn his way back into the UFC. After
he just beat the number one contender.
Exactly. That's why. Although it does, like, admittedly, I might be biased, but it sucks to see him already get a title shot again. But it's the right move to make.
It sucks, but I mean, like I said, if we take him at his word, he only did the EPO for 125. They went back supposedly and tested all of his, and this is coming from a Cody Garbrandt fan. So I'm, I'm not biased.
This is legit, man. As biased as it comes, too. It's great.
So I'm saying, like, if they went back and tested every single sample that he's provided and nothing's popped up, then the dude is still legit. Like, he just came back. He shouldn't have EPO in his system. Obviously, he's back at his weight class. He beat the number one contender. That's the toughest fight in that division he could have came back to. There's nobody tougher than that fight. He completely deserves it, in my opinion.
Yeah, I have no problems with this. It is just, I mean, it's obviously going to rub a few people the wrong way. But that's going to do it for our UFC Vegas 32 recap. Before we get to 33, let's talk some news because Stipe Miocic has recently spoken out about the current state of the heavyweight division. There is a post on Instagram of that ONE FC talking about a fighter that, I mean, just their caption said, "Who should Chatri sign to ONE championship? Nominate yourself for a fighter to know, blah, blah, blah." So pretty much, and then Stipe Miocic put down the whole thinking emoji underneath that. And then he went on to say, "I shouldn't have to wait for a winner. I have the most heavyweight title defenses of all time. We're 1-1, but DC got instant rematches and trilogies against me, ? So obviously he has, I think he's fully justified in being frustrated with this. It's definitely a weird situation, but also that trilogy with DC helped that division a little bit. We at least got DC fought Derek Lewis in kind of a bad fight. It was kind of a stupid fight, almost a worse fight than Cyril Gahn versus Derek Lewis for an interim belt. But we did have that. So what do you think about this? And is Stipe in the right?
I mean, it's hard. It's a tough one, man, because the whole interim title thing really like kind of changes my answer. Because at first it's like, I think you should just chill out for a sec, let someone else fight for once, and then get the next shot. But it's not really like that. It's like they've created a completely, an interim title, right, between Cyril Gahn and Derek Lewis, and so that fight has to go down before even they get to the title fight. And so that fight is in August or September. When is it? When is the Cyril Gahn versus Derek?
That's August.
Okay, so that's in August. Yeah. So probably Francis won't be fighting until December earliest, I would imagine. November, December.
Yeah.
And so that means Stipe is just out there waiting now. And then you still have John Jones, whatever his plans are, right?
John Jones is going to do, man?
He could come up at any moment and say, "Hey, I'm ready now. I'll take that money." Blah 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 blah.
Really, John Jones could just pop up out of nowhere.
So it kind of does suck. There is a little bit of uncertainty there for Stipe. But I think the smart thing for Stipe, in my opinion, to do right now would just be call out John Jones. Like keep calling John Jones' name, and show that like you want to be the guy to introduce him to the heavyweight division. And I know that there's not going to be a belt in the line, so that John Jones probably won't take that. UFC probably wouldn't even offer it. But if I was Stipe, that's what I would be doing. Because I think he's gonna have to take one fight before he gets that title again. That opportunity. Yeah. Just based on timelines.
It's almost unfortunate, but it does. It's almost like the same sense of why we shouldn't get the trilogy between Figueiredo and Moreno, because it was, at least in terms of the second fight, because the second fight wasn't close at all. But the difference between that, though, is that the first fight between Moreno and Figueiredo was really close, whereas Stipe dominated and gone in for 5 rounds in that first fight,
Yeah.
So I think ultimately he is the heavyweight GOAT, and it is a 1-1. So I think ultimately he should get this trilogy fight. Should it happen immediately?
Definitely deserves it.
No, but I mean, especially if he could wait. Realistically, he could wait, and if Ngannou beats Derek Lewis or Cyril Gane, I'm okay with that. Let's make that trilogy happen. And then if John Jones comes up, he might have to fight John Jones first. It's
a tricky one.
It's a weird thing, and really the only way this is going to be clear is with time. And so this is one of those topics that we're just going to check up on every number of episodes with this one. But the other piece of news is that, pretty much good news for everyone, is that Kamaru Usman versus Colby Covington 2 is confirmed. And this is going to be going down at the Madison Square Garden later this year. And so this is ultimately what we're expecting. But I like it because there's a few people that kept on trying to vie for a fight with Kamaru Usman. So I'm glad we finally just got this made. So the rest of that welterweight division could get moving.
Yeah, this needed to be made about 2 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever the fight versus Jorge Masvidal was over.
Right. As soon as that fight was over, it should have been made.
Yeah, because, finally everyone will get to move on after this.
Exactly.
That's going to be the good thing. Either Colby gets beat again or he becomes a champ. So
yeah, and that there's another instant trilogy we could do with that one.
Yeah.
Damn. But at least, and then also this clears up a path for the number one contender spot. Gilbert Burns versus Leon Edwards. Burns has been calling for Leon, and this is obviously the fight to make if Leon was going.
Yes.
He was going to get the title shot. So this. And also a good thing, Nate Diaz isn't getting that title shot, so I think this is ultimately the best thing that could have happened for the division.
I think competitively it was the right decision to make.
Money-wise, no, you give to Nate, but competitively, yeah.
Well, even money-wise, I think Colby would probably do just as good as Nate.
Really?
I think so. I don't think Nate is as big of a draw as people want to say he is. Like, yes, is he popular? 1,000%. But is he moving the needle like Conor McGregor does, where people buy his pay-per-views?
Or are you going to say what Dana White said a bunch of years ago, that Nate Diaz isn't a needle mover?
Not saying that.
Play.
Not saying that at all.
Unbelievable.
I'm not saying he's not a needle mover, but I'm saying he's not on the same level as a Conor McGregor, where you're gonna get guaranteed 1.3 million buys. Go look at the numbers. Go look at the numbers that Nate Diaz was on. Go look at it. I want you after this podcast.
Were huge, man.
Look at what the numbers were for Nate Diaz's last pay-per-view, and you'll be shocked.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't a million. I'll tell you that. A lot less than a million.
No, it definitely wasn't anywhere close to what UFC 264 pulled. That's for damn sure on that one.
Not even half.
No.
Not even, yeah. Dude,
no, it was tough. And the last bit of news is that we got some good news for all of you Americans that are fans of the UFC, because although that UFC 267 is going to be pretty damn early in the morning, at least compared to what we've been getting. Of course, this is Jan Blachowicz versus Glover Teixeira, and then also Aljo versus Jan 2. Eastern start time, East Coast start time. This is taking place at 11 a.m. Of course, this card is taking place at 5 a.m. So to make up for the early rise and the early start, this is going to be a free pay-per-view to all of us, and it's going to be on ESPN and ESPN Plus. So not only is this a great move for us, it might be a really great thing for the sport of MMA here in America. You get to see this huge pay-per-view card for free. Might hopefully bring in a lot more fans to the sport. I think it's all around solid move by the promotion.
Yeah, I think it can't hurt,
No.
Just more eyes, more accessible to the viewers. So that's always a good thing, in my opinion.
Also, that $70 price tag on pay-per-views is always BS. And there's a reason why I totally buy the pay-per-view every month, Blake. I really do,
Yep, you gotta, all your friends have to pitch in, and you buy it from ESPN Plus. You go on that link and you buy it, and you don't stream it.
No,
you buy.
No, why would you ever stream? Streaming bad, buying good. Give Disney your money.
Just look at my credit history. My credit card statements. You'll see.
Right.
$70 charge. Actually, $65 since I already subscribed to ESPN Plus.
Hell yeah! Moral of the story: give ESPN and Disney all your money because it's better for. Who is it? I don't know where I'm going with this. I'm just going to move on. Let's get to UFC Vegas 33, and then of course finish up with our Nene of the week. And normally we talk about fights to look out for. I'm excited for the main event between Sean Strickland and Uriah Hall. I think this is a big proof-it fight for either guy, and it's really going to boost them up the rankings and maybe give them the winner of this might get a next fight that could give them a shot at the top 5. So a lot of implications riding on this in this main event, really. But besides that, hey Blake, how long do you think we tried spending trying to get a list of Blake's bangers together on this one?
It was close to 30 minutes. I'm sorry guys, there is no way that I could put my stamp of approval on like 3 of these fights specifically, just because I don't know enough about these people. Like, a lot of these people are either newcomers or, just fresh faces in general.
There's some on losing streaks too.
And then the people that I do recognize, they're facing nobodies. Like, some of the people that pique my interest, obviously, is going to be Brian Barberina. That guy throws down. Ashley Yoder, just because I feel like she's always put in really tough fights where she's supposed to be the underdog. Mm-hmm. Now, finally, she's going to be the favorite. So we'll see if she can, get on the right track. And her striking is impressive to me, and she's always a pretty game opponent. So I'm looking forward to her. We got the biggest scaredy cat ever. No offense, Nico Montano. I'm just saying that. I'm just saying that because of the.
Come mess Blake up. Come with the show and mess Blake up.
I'm just saying that because of the whole ordeal that happened with the flyweight division, how she was slated to face Shevchenko and ended up just vacating it.
Hey, also, I don't blame her.
So I'm just interested in seeing her fights because of that situation. That's how I know her from. Mm-hmm. But other than that, like, I really don't know anything about anyone else. Like, I've maybe watched one of their fights, but yeah, I couldn't tell you too much about it.
Honestly, it might be the best choice because, it's all about being honest. We're always honest and transparent with you guys, and it's just not that complete of a card. Especially, it has a lot of the potential to be one of those cards that maybe is overlooked and has the ability to surprise a lot of people.
I was just going to say, I think it's one of those cards that we've talked about before, mm-hmm. where you need to just go in with zero expectations. Yeah. Like, just watch. Yes. And it might surprise the heck out of you. There's been a couple cards that have, mm-hmm. like, I didn't know a lot about a lot of the fighters, and it ended up being, a phenomenal card. So
there's a lot of those cards where I didn't know a lot about the fighters, but now those fighters that were like new on those are ones that I'm always looking out for at this point. So
right.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about being optimistic, man. This card on paper doesn't look fantastic, but you never know. That's the beauty of the sport, I'm sure that we're still going to get some solid action, even not in the main event, when it comes to this Saturday. So just got to be on the lookout for that one. Okay. And that, Blake, I think you've been hitting on all your Blake's bangers. So if you have a little bit of a week off, I think it's justified. I think it's okay.
Yeah, I'm getting some PTO.
No, you're getting some TO.
I don't get paid for shit around here.
Patreon, bitches, please.
Yeah, make sure you guys subscribe to our Patreon.
$1 a month, that's all it takes. I promise.
I'll start uploading some dance videos or something. Is that what the kids like these days?
It is. Do the TikToking,
I got a little tick and talk.
That's our rap group name. Blake Tick, Talk, The shizzle, the hizzle, what's the haps on the crap? Shake 'em, shake 'em, shake 'em. And to cap things off, of course, it's going to be none other than the Nene of the week, and it's actually not going to be Blake's paycheck or Blake winning for his paycheck, or I guess lack thereof of a paycheck. I mean, just go shout out the Patreon. Always love to them. But in reality, you look at 3 of these fights on the card. And there were 3 constants, and that was if you were going up against a Team Alpha Male fighter, whether it be a controversial decision or not. I mean, Macy Barber, and then with Macy Barber and then the other fight, the co-main event, those are controversial, to say the least, in terms of decisions. But one thing wasn't controversial was Darren Elkins versus Derek Minner. So we had that. But honestly, the Nene goes to anyone that had to fight against Team Alpha Male, because those guys, the Butchin, Uriah Faber, and Coach Joey Rodriguez and crew, went out, they showed out, and they had one hell of a card, and those coaches made some good money with all those paychecks being cashed because you not only got the show bonus, you got that win bonus as well. So, I mean, always love to the local team out there, the local MMA gym. I mean, this Blake, Sacramento area. So, much love to Team Alpha Male. We've had a number of their guys on, and they're nothing but fantastic people,
Yes, sir.
Hey, bad news if you want to go against them is all I got to say. But, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for this episode of UFC Talk 54. Thank you all very much for sticking to the end. I mean, you might have noticed throughout the show, I've gotten a couple of, I guess we had my girlfriend's dog making her debut and her presence known occasionally. So I do apologize for that unless you love dog. If you want dog pics, feel free to hit us up on our Twitter at Fourth Long Radio or Instagram at Fourth Long Radio. I'd be more than happy to oblige. Oh man, she is a pain in the butt, but also we all know dogs, right? I mean, Blake, you're a dog pain in the butt too. Your dog's made his presence known on a couple of the shows as well.
Oh yeah, I have a couple dogs. I make their presence known.
Exactly. Hey, another reason to donate to the Patreon. Maybe we can get our own studios. Okay, so soundproof, away from the house. You never know. You never know. Just share, comment, and make us blow up so we can help just produce even better content with even less distractions, especially dogs, as well. But before we sign off, just want to shout out to our Patreon supporters. Shout out to Ray Rodriguez. And for all your card collecting needs, go on over to Instagram and follow at The Big Back Box. Also, shout out to Ryan Watson and Neil Wiley. But Blake, your thoughts on UFC Vegas 33 in one word or phrase?
CEO of EPO.
I said 33, but not 32. That's embarrassing, isn't it? That's embarrassing, Blake.
32 of 30. Why you always say the one that's the?
I know. Why do you think I threw you off this time?
You always say the one that's so. Then you're just stupid.
I do. I purposely wanted to screw you over.
Yeah. So then you're a saboteur.
Yeah.
Basically, should change your name to Drew Lock.
Oh my god. I don't think Drew Lock does it on purpose. I just don't think he's that accurate.
He sucks. Just like you for that. Making me look stupid. Come on.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you next week.